What's up, Rocket League esports fans? We need to talk. It's been a while since we've really discussed and looked back at what RLCSX was. Brand new format, introduction of a bunch of events, a bunch of things, and a lot of really cool things that it could have led to and could have become. And I'm going to try to take those into account. But there was also a lot of things that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Things that I really didn't like or things that I think could be improved upon. So in today's video, we're going to talk about changes, wish list items, things that I think need to happen or hope happen for RLCS XI or XI, whatever the heck they're going to call it with this new naming convention. Either way, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about changes to the format and kind of recapping and looking back and seeing if there's things that I think Psyonix/Epic Games need to spend a little bit more time and extra love to when it comes to the upcoming season that should hopefully be right around the corner. What's up, everybody? Lawler here, inside source for all things Rocket League. Going to be talking about RLCS XI, all-encompassing things that I hope to see before and after, some improvements, just things I hope happen for this next upcoming season. This is going to be kind of off the cuff, things that have been on my mind, things that I hope happen, and hopefully it doesn't get too ranty and we mix it up with some B-roll, but primarily just some, I guess, wish list items that I hope happen. Primarily to kind of just talk about X for a general recap. For those that don't know, RLCSX implemented some really cool things with a circuit-based format. In the past, RLCS used to be a league play-based system. They had 8, then went to 10 teams. Those 10 teams played each other one time, and whoever was the top in that circumstance then went, or the top 6, I should say, went to a page playoff format where the top 4 who ended up qualifying went to the World Championship. 4 from NA, 4 from EU. We saw some from the South American region, some from the Oceanic region. That was pretty much how it was. It was like that for a very long time. We had twice a year. It was a cool way to go and celebrate with the community and a bunch of other people. But the only downfall was that World Championships and the title of being a World Championship kind of fell short. The feeling of being a world champ was short-lived. It was only a couple months and then that went away. They then introduced RLCSX, the new format, circuit-based format, which many other organizations and tournament organizers and as well as, I guess, just esports in general started to implement. You look at Rainbow Six Siege, you look at Counter-Strike, you look at a bunch of others, and they go about doing it a different way where it is a open circuit. Yes, they still provide guaranteed spots to the guys who perform at the top because you don't want to have to force your best of the best to go through open qualifiers. And that is a big focus of it. But then you also give the opportunity and the chance for lesser known teams to maybe have that one-off tournament or that pop-off tournament that allows them to make a name for themselves. Possibly they get picked up as a free agent. There's a lot of different potential when I'm an organization and I'm like, hey man, I really want to make a name for myself, and I only get that opportunity if I climb through the RLRS, have a good tournament, and in this one day qualify for the RLCS. And that amount of pressure all the time for those teams and that one chance, and if you just have an off day, like, yes, I kind of agree you need to be able to play when it matters most, but it just didn't really lead to positive things. So I personally am a huge fan of the RLCSX format, the circuit-based format. I think it's done a lot of wonderful things. It's given a lot of wonderful people opportunities, whether it be community casters getting to do stuff like the grid and everything else. It's just overall been very positive. If things went according to plan, there was going to be 22 events, whether it be through regionals or the grid or anything else. You also had the field, which has been what feels like completely forgotten about, and I have a solution for that, part of my wish list, which I'll talk about here in a sec. And then they also have something along the lines of what was supposed to be international majors. After the end of every split, there was supposed to be the best of the best teams. They go to an international major. They compete for points. Those points don't always necessarily get divvied up equally between the different regions, which makes for some really cool storylines and really big moments towards the tail end of the season. Due to the pandemic, that didn't happen, and unfortunately, those international majors never happened, so everything was kept within its region from start to finish, which I think really hurt the RLCSX season and what it could have been. If you're telling me that every 3 to 4 months, we got to go to an international event where the best of the best in the world get to compete, and those points have an effect that matter for the rest of the season and carry over. Rocket League would have, in my opinion, started to transition in from a tier 2 to a tier 1 esport and caught global attention. I think it would have been a really big deal, along with a lot of other factors with them partnering with ESPN and a lot of the other things they're working on a national broadcast level. There's a lot of things that Psyonix and Epic Games are doing right now to create a foundation for the future, which is something that I'm really, really excited for. It's just some certain things need to go away, COVID, in order for that to happen. So now that we know about the things I like, excitement and all that kind of stuff, let's talk about some of the wish list things. The first thing I'm going to mention is the field. The field, although is kind of a cool way for your path to pro, it doesn't necessarily feel like the right way. A lot of European teams use it as like their scrim schedule, but primarily North America, nobody really gives it any weight or care because they think it's better to go scrim for 3 hours against other professional teams than it does to play in the field, which I understand. And when your best of your best don't even want to put time and effort into it, in my opinion, something has to change. This is something that I've been talking about for a multitude of years. You can even go back to my How to Fix Rocket League video that I did when I first really started getting into my YouTube channel. Other people have talked about this. This has been a huge request for a very long time, and it's Club Q. For the longest time, I've been a huge advocate of something that was actually in the alpha, and if not, it was supposed to be implemented into Rocket League, and then they got rid of it, which was team dedicated queues. Right now, as a player, you have your own individual rating, your MMR, and it affects nobody else. Doesn't matter if you queue with teammates or not. Your MMR is individual to just you. A club queue is something that would utilize a system that has been implemented in the game, and I don't know for what reason. Right now, there is clubs in the game where you and a group of people can sign up for a club, and if it is of enough status, it gets verified. It allows you, if you play against another club, to change the colors of the arena based upon your club colors. And that's it. It doesn't really do anything else. But what would be cool is if that became what the field is now. A club queue where you are using verified teams, high profile and otherwise, to feed into a better system, whether it be professional tournaments or amateur tournaments. But that could be what Six Mans is essentially now, or otherwise. The ability to sit down with dedicated teams where myself and 2 others, when we play together, have a team MMR that we have to queue with a full set of 3 people to have, which might populate a list where other dedicated teams are playing. It's going to be a more competitive queue than anything else because it's pretty much going to be guaranteed to have comms going as well as everything else. And with communication coming in and they're updating the voice chat options, this is something that I think would go hand in hand. I think this would be a really cool feature. I think it's something that could, in the future, replace what the field is now. I think this is something that I hope is being worked on, and I don't foresee this happening before RLCS XI does come to fruition, but it is something that I hope that they're working for. Club Q, to me, could be a very big solution for a lot of issues I think that are happening. The second thing is actually simplifying the format. Even though many of us now have figured out and understood the format and have had to talk about it over and over and over and over again and still have people confused by it, simplifying it and doing the whole less is more approach might be the solution. And I think that's the way Psyonix is going. From the rumors I have heard, there will be no grid for RLCS XI. The grid is going away, and we will start to see something a little bit more similar to what we saw in the spring split, where there will be a day 0 broadcast. And the reason why it's called day 0 is because it's not on the Rocket League channel. It is on each individual organization's channel. Still empowering organizations to have their own broadcast and their own broadcast team and their own flair and flavor. But it takes away some of the pressure and the difficulties of Psyonix trying to run a bunch of different matches every single weekend for a bunch of different teams. This would enable people to still get viewership benefits, and even though they may not do a percentage of sales or a deal that they cut with Psyonix for skin sales or whatever it may be, stuff that they do in franchise leagues, it would still enable them to build and grow their own branding, stuff that a lot of these organizations are really excited about, something that Call of Duty and other esports have looked at as, this thing that Psyonix is doing is actually pretty cool and is actually really beneficial to the organizations. It allows them to broadcast and utilize top tier content that they can't get anywhere else. That exclusivity is a really big deal. And it's good for younger and smaller organizations as well, due to the fact that it is exposure that they may not get anywhere else. If I'm a C tier organization and I'm playing like BDS or NRG or something like that, that trickle and that upset potential is awesome for these organizations. So by getting rid of the grid, even though I loved the grid in its concept, it felt like it was too much. They're like, this is a good idea, this is a good idea, let's throw them both in. And it seems like they're trying to simplify that, which I think is something that is desperately needed. They need to make it as easy to understand and as easy to follow as possible. I remember back in the old days of RLCS in season 2 and 3 when we did mid-season mayhem, where they put in like rumble tournaments and stuff in the middle of a season, and people would come in and be like, wait, does this count for RLCS? What's this? Why is this happening? And it's a random $10,000 tournament, and it actually hurt. Like the concurrent viewership went down by 10,000 viewers and we never got it back. It was super confusing, and I think those are things that should be learned upon as well. And instead you can spend time and effort doing like an all-star event where you can create content and do media interviews and a media day for video pieces and segments that you can use throughout the rest of the season. Better effort spent there rather than doing other tournament or something, because a lot of money goes into those. So no grid, simplify the format, and then add in to ways for the organizations to be happier about their investment into the esports scene and their teams. I think those kind of go hand in hand. The benefit of simplifying the format and everything else is something else that comes in, and it's the scheduling. There is clearly a difficulty of too much work for not enough people. Right now, the Rocket League esports staff is 5-6 people. I would love for you guys to expand upon that. Easier said than done. And that means you guys aren't working your butts off and trying to do so many things. And because you are working so hard and you have so many, obligations and tasks to do, there is other things that are missing. And primarily the thing that Psyonix and Epic Games clearly has always struggled with is communication. The lack of information that is being given to the public. It is a guessing game of what the heck is going on. If it wasn't for Liquipedia, we'd all be screwed, being completely honest. The website doesn't really do its job. There's a lot of frustrations that people have on the communication side of things. And by simplifying and making things simpler and easier, that might help. The big thing I'm talking about, and the biggest thing I want to reference, is there was a point where there was a trade window or a trade deadline where organizations and teams were able to make adjustments to their rosters in a specific time frame. That time frame was supposed to be about a week and a half. It was supposed to give ample time for teams that were struggling or having some issues before they fully locked in their rosters. You can make some changes during this time to give yourself a better chance towards the tail end of the season. You got 2 trade windows. Unfortunately, the first trade window was cut short. It was made only 6 days. Imagine trying to make and sign contracts and get moving pieces going in 6 days. It's not a thing that's going to happen. Plus, we got a bunch of kids and they like to take their time and procrastinate. I'm guilty of that too. Schoolwork and I was always done the day of. Not a good idea. But it just wasn't enough time, and it clearly made some issues. And then the more frustrating part was they ended up delaying the matches anyway afterwards. So even though they cut the trade window short to 6 days, there was still like an extra week and a half of nothing else going on. And I understand you want to cut that deadline and make that deadline secure, because then you have time to make sure that there's no additional moving parts when you're trying to figure out schedules and everything else. But those are the types of things when you're trying to do too much at one time, that it creates complications and it continues to double down. So more staffing, simplifying, creating ample time and communication to make sure that people know what the heck's going on. And then last but not least is I want to see them continue to make unique brand deals. And it's hard to explain this one. Right now, things seem to be pretty cookie cutter. They found a formula that works. We have a brand or a sponsor or something that wants to do a partnership with us, whether it be Lamborghini or Ford or whatever it may be. We're going to do a tournament in the middle of the broadcast, and it's great for the organization or the sponsor because it is where most of the eyes are when it comes to this game. It's the highest profile way of marketing that they can use. And then they do something in game, whether it be a car or something like that, which is cool and all. But I want to see something unique. I know that's more time and effort and stuff, but hopefully the more staffing and everything else carries through that. But I want to see something different. I don't want to see the same thing over and over and over again, because I think that's the number one thing that people want to make sure you learn from last season. When things fell apart, when COVID became a hurdle, when we weren't able to do international things and everything else, what things do you have in place or what things do you have planned to make sure it's not the same? How do we make sure that every single split, every single regional, every single thing doesn't feel like the exact same thing? And that's probably one of my biggest concerns. When the winter split or whatever heck is going to be first ends up coming into place, and they announce again, hey, there's no LAN, there is no way for international competition to happen. And the formats and stuff like that, we've pretty much run through all the options. What is going to happen to change up and diversify? What is the contingency plan to make sure that we don't plateau and go through the same mundane, monotonous, boring stuff that we've been seeing already for the past 10.5 months? Yes, we've been missing Rocket League and RLCS for the past, couple months, and we're excited for it to come back. But how do we make sure we stay one step ahead and don't fall back into that? Those are the questions I'm proposing. Those are the things I hope the team is thinking about. I have a ton of faith in that esports team. They work extremely hard to make this stuff happen. And this is not me trying to call them out or be mean or be a dick about any of this stuff. It's just because I genuinely care and I want this stuff to succeed. I want Rocket League esports to be the tier 1 biggest esport in the world that I know it has the capability of being. It's the reason why I'm still sticking around, because I know in my heart of hearts that Rocket League has potential to be the biggest game in the world. And I think Psyonix believes that too. I'm just nervous about how we're going to get there, because over the years, that concern has been growing more and more. So with that said, that is kind of my wish list. I could go more detail about this. If you guys would like to hear more about it, let me know your questions, comments, concerns in the comments down below. Feel free to stop by the stream. I stream every day but Tuesday and Sunday if you'd like to come talk about this more in detail. But I would love to hear you guys' own thoughts and opinions about this. Kind of your own wish list of things that you thought or would hope to happen in the upcoming season. Things you didn't like about last season, things you like about last season, things you hope to see them double down on and improve upon. The last thing I will say that I hope to see, because I'm thinking about it now, is I do hope they continue to implement stuff with the spectating system and the observer client. Right now, there's definitely some limitations. Towards the tail end of last season, they did update the observer for some visual changes with boost graphs and everything like that. But there's still a lot of things with like coach spectator slots and stuff like that that they still need to implement. And I'm hoping those things are coming with Unreal Engine 5. If you guys didn't see my talk about Unreal Engine 5 with Lethmir, you guys can go check out that video in the related or down below somewhere, which might provide a little bit more insight, but it's part of the reason why I left it out of this video. So with that said, if you guys do enjoy this type of content, make sure you guys give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.